Good morning. My name is Steve Surikaku. Apologies for the delay. Welcome. Whether the Unitarian Church of Evanston is your spiritual home or you are seeking comfort and connection in uncertain times, we are grateful you are here with us. We are an inclusive and welcoming community, seeking truth and love and striving to nurture the human spirit for a world made whole. We are guided by our principles and values, which remind us in every moment and through every challenge that each of us is worthy of love and that we are all connected through the vast and beautiful web of existence. Together, let us remember our kinship with one another, and may we hold one another in heart and mind with tenderness and careful attention. There are many links of connection in the comments section of the YouTube live stream, including the order of service credits, ways to support our mission, and to be added to our email newsletter list. We hold a virtual coffee and conversation after this service for 30 minutes on Zoom. You can find the link in the comments below or from the newsletter. Our annual in-gathering is next Sunday, September 12th at 10:15. Please note the change in the time of the worship service. Reverend Eileen will share more details about next Sunday.
Good morning, beloved community. We are so excited to welcome folks back to the building for Sunday morning worship and faith formation. And I want to let you know some important details. First, as you know, things are continuously changing, and we are paying close attention to what is happening in Evanston and Cook County in terms of the virus. You can read full details of the current building protocols on the UCE website. Those will be posted tomorrow. But know that we have protocols in place to mitigate risk, including adequate air exchange and filtration, mandatory masks, and chairs spaced apart. We will not be singing live in the building, but we will continue to have excellent music. We expect everyone who is able to be vaccinated has been. And this is based on the survey responses and vaccination numbers in our area. All this said, it is important for every family to do what is right for them in terms of managing their well-being. Thanks to all of you who have taken our short poll to let us know if you are planning to attend in person next Sunday. This really helps us with our planning. If you haven't taken it yet, the link is in the newsletter and it's not too late to do so. As of this morning, we are expecting 128 people to attend in person next Sunday, which is so exciting and a little scary. But here's what it means. There is space in the sanctuary for 120 people, chairs spaced apart in groups of 1, 2, 3, and 4. People will be seated, first come, first serve, and then after the sanctuary chairs are full, folks will be asked to participate in the service from room 3, where the service will be live streamed. There, the capacity is 25. When room 3 fills, folks will be led to room 6, where the capacity is 20. Beyond that, we will have chairs outside on the south lawn with a speaker. And after the service, we will have a chance to greet each other and enjoy coffee and lemonade and water and bless our grounds with the water that we gather together in our service. I know that this may be hard for folks who are eager to be back in the sanctuary. It's hard for me too. I had hoped that we would be able to open our sanctuary and not have capacity limits by this time, but it's just not the case. So I want you to know that we are working very hard to make the services inclusive and engaging, no matter where you are participating from. And whichever way you and your family choose to participate, whether you are at home or in the building, we hope that you'll bring with you water, symbolic or otherwise, from whatever adventures you've engaged in this summer. In your yard, at the lake, across the country. Where have you found nourishment for your soul this summer? Let us gather the waters of that font and bless our community on September 12th. And now I invite you to get your chalices ready, set a place for yourself and your family as we join in beloved community. Our opening reading is by Khalil Gibran, Lebanese poet, philosopher, and artist, from his seminal work, The Prophet. When you work, you are a flute through whose heart the whispering of the hours turns to music. Which of you would be a reed, dumb and silent, when all else sings together in unison? Always you have been told that work is a curse and labor a misfortune. But I say to you that when you work, you fulfill a part of Earth's furthest dream, assigned to you when that dream was born. And in keeping yourself with labor, you are, in truth, loving life. And to love life through labor is to be intimate with life's inmost secret. You have been told also that life is darkness, and in your weariness you echo what was said by the weary. And I say that life is indeed darkness, save when there is urge. And all urge is blind, save when there is knowledge. And all knowledge is vain, save when there is work. And all work is empty, save when there is love. And when you work with love, you bind yourself to yourself and to one another and to God. And what is it to work with love? It is to weave the cloth with threads drawn from your heart, even as if your beloved were to wear that cloth. It is to build a house with affection, even as if your beloved were to dwell in that house. It is to sow seeds with tenderness and reap the harvest with joy, even as if your beloved were to eat the fruit. It is to charge all things you fashion with a breath of your own spirit, and to know that all the blessed dead are standing about you and watching. Welcome to worship.
The Unitarian Church of Evanston sits on stolen lands, the traditional and current homelands of the Council of the Three Fires, the Odawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi nations. Many other tribes, such as the Miami, Menominee, Ho-Chunk, Sac, and Fox, have and continue to call this area home. We name these in honor and respect for the land, all the animals and plants that have lived on and through the land, and on all people who have been and remain a part of the earth. Our shared faith calls on us to name these as one small effort toward greater accountability, deeper relationship, and mutuality with our ancestors and descendants. Now, as we light our chalice, the symbol of our living tradition, please join in saying these words by Florence Caplow, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Urbana-Champaign. in recognition of Labor Day, we light this flame to honor all work, including the work of our hands and our backs, in gratitude for all the laborers that support our world, and for all those who boldly continue the work of justice, equity, and peace. Now please join in saying the words of our covenant. Okay. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. And now for hymn 313. Oh, what a piece of work are we.
Oh, what a piece of work we are, how marvelously wrought, the quick contrivance of the hand, the wonder of our thought, the wonder of our thought.
Why need to look for miracles outside of nature's law? Humanity we wonder at with every breath we draw, with every breath we draw.
But give us room to move and grow, but give our spirit play, and we can make a world of light out of the common clay, out of the common clay.
Once there was a prince who never smiled. The king and queen wanted their child to be happy, so they tried lots of things. They tried the court jester, doctors, therapists, teachers, but no one could make the child smile. But then the king and queen had an idea with their advisors. Find a happy person, someone who is truly happy, and bring their bag. For what must be in there must be what they hold the happiness in. So bring it back to the child, and that will make your child happy.
So the royal advisors set out in search of a truly happy person. The first person they encountered was a merchant, someone who sells things for a living, and they asked the merchant if they were happy. They liked doing what they were doing. And the merchant said, well, I get on all right, but really, I'd like to be a knight. I mean, I'm really good at what I do, and I think I should get some recognition for that. Well, the advisors looked at one another and realized, this is not really a truly happy person. And they moved on. Then they encountered a priest. They thought, surely the priest must be happy. And they asked the priest, are you happy? She answered, well, I like what I do, but I really wish that I were a bishop. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and really I think my position should be higher in the church. The advisors shook their heads again and said, not a truly happy person. So they kept looking. But every person they encountered was not truly happy or content. Either they didn't like the job they were doing, or they worked too hard and they were tired, or they were worried constantly about their children and they didn't have enough to eat or enough clothes. None of them was truly happy or content.
But then the advisors heard someone whistling. And they followed the sound to a farmer weeding in his garden. The farmer welcomed them and offered them water and freshly pulled carrots. And while they were chomping on those freshly pulled carrots, the advisors asked the farmer some questions.
Do you want a bigger farm or something? The farmer said, "Oh, mine I think is just right." Do you wish that you did something else, maybe merchant, priest, bishop, or something like that? No, I like what I do. I would really miss the fresh air and digging my hands in the soil. Is there anything that you wish that you had differently? No, nothing, said the farmer.
Well, the advisors were perplexed, but thrilled. You are the person we've been looking for. The king and queen have asked us to bring back the bag of a truly happy person. Can we have your bag? The farmer just kind of shrugged and said, "But I don't own a bag."
Huh, thought the advisors. Well, they wished the farmer well and headed back to the castle, empty-handed, but not empty-headed. They knew that what the prince needed to do was to make his own bag of happiness and to put things inside of it that would make him happy. They had some ideas about how to do that, but I'm wondering if you have some ideas. What would you use to build or create your bag of happiness? And what would you put in it? What do you think the prince should do? If you want to add your ideas to the chat, I'll read them out. What would you put in your bag of happiness? What would you need to be fulfilled and content? Perhaps love, health,
chocolate,
peace, joy, art and beauty, family, friendship, fresh air, music. These are all wonderful ideas for a bag of happiness.
sunshine.
Sunshine.
So today, we want to give our young people a special blessing as they begin a new school year or homeschool year. Learning, of course, is very important in our Unitarian Universalist tradition, and it's one of our principles, right? That we should accept each other and learn and grow together. So your schooling is your work, and your work is important and valuable. And we want you to remember that you are all valuable, no matter what you do or how well you do in school. You are all loved and valuable. That's what our Unitarian Universalist tradition tells us.
We have these charms that Kathy made, which you can pick up this week, either during the week, during office hours between 10 and 5, Tuesday through Friday, or next Sunday if you are planning to come to church in person. We bless these backpack charms with our love to remind you that you are loved no matter where you are and what you do. So wonderful to see those photos of some of our young ones heading to school. That is what I would weave into my bag of happiness, is their joyful faces. These are the joys and sorrows that have been submitted this morning through the Google form found on our homepage of our website, or email to me. You can always email me or Reverend Susan up until Sunday morning at about 9 a.m. For joys or sorrows that you would like to be shared with this community. Martha Holman had successful knee replacement surgery this past week. She returned to the hospital with a minor setback, but is home now and feeling better. She appreciates your care and concern and welcomes your cards. Mary Dudek wrote, sending these words of wisdom from Maya Angelou, which I find very grounding and want to share with our UCE community. We need joy as we need air. We need love as we need water. We need each other as we need the earth we share. Lee and Jane Banner shared that they are sad they will not be at the opening of the church on September 12th, but are joyful that they will be visiting Catherine, Nadine, and Mo. Sandra Robinson asks for your prayers and healing thoughts for her brother Dan. He had open heart surgery this week and is struggling to survive. And a sorrow that was shared this week. Bud Brock, member of this congregation for more than 60 years, died on Wednesday peacefully with zeal by his side. And I also want to add, apologies, that Sydney Zwick, who was the spouse of Rosemary Zwick, who created our previous chalice, whose art has adorned the church, also died last Friday, the 27th. We know that these are not the only joys and sorrows on our hearts. In the practice of beloved community, we hold these together, these tender offerings, those spoken and unspoken, and we take a moment to hold quietly and read together the sorrows and joys that have been added to the chat this morning. We hold these as well in tenderness and care, and all those that live beyond the walls of this community and out into the wide world. Together we expand our celebrations and lessen the burden of our grief. I invite you to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. This by songwriter, composer, and writer Amanda Udis Kessler. On Labor Day, we honor our work, physical and mental, paid and unpaid, joyous and heartbreaking. We give thanks for work's gifts, suffer its difficulties, and strive to make labor just and joyous for all. Our work can build our society, provide for our material needs, and give our life meaning. We labor in gratitude. Our work can damage our society and the planet, fails to sustain our material needs, and be meaningless. We join together to create work that supports the well-being of all. Our work can heal the world, help us understand who we are, and keep us safe. We labor in joy. Our work can harm the world, demean us, and expose us to danger. We join together to create work that is safe and humane. Our work can fill our days with accomplishments and our lives with stories. We labor in love. Our work can dissatisfy and alienate us. We may not be able to find enough work or any work. We join together to create work that blesses us, all people in the planet. This Labor Day and all Labor Days to come, may our work and all work serve humanity and all living beings. Amen.
As we say in our covenant each Sunday, service is our law. UCE is called by our mission, values, and principles to contribute to our community, to form accountable partnerships, and to express gratitude through giving. Today's offering will be shared with Deborah's Place, whose mission is opening doors of opportunity and helping women experiencing homelessness in Chicago. You can text to give, send in a check, or give from our website. If you send a check, please indicate in the memo line if your check is for the shared offering, pledge, capital campaign, or some other giving. Please give as generously as you are able, and may what you give bring you joy. That was great, Gregory. Today's reading, or this reading, is from Mutual Aid, Building Solidarity During This Crisis and the Next, by Dean Spade, who has been working to build queer and trans liberation based in racial and economic justice for the past 2 decades. He works as an associate professor at Seattle University School of Law. Mutual aid is one term used to describe collective coordination to meet each other's needs, usually stemming from an awareness that the systems we have in place are not going to meet them. Those systems, in fact, have often created the crisis or are making things worse. We see examples of mutual aid in every single social movement, whether it's people raising money for workers on strike, setting up a carpooling system during the Montgomery bus boycott, putting drinking water in the desert for migrants crossing the border, training each other in emergency medicine because ambulance response time in poor neighborhoods is too slow, raising money to pay for abortions for those who can't afford them, or coordinating letter writing to prisoners. These are mutual aid projects. They directly meet people's survival needs and are based on a shared understanding that the conditions in which we are made to live are unjust. There are 3 key elements of mutual aid. 1, mutual aid projects work to meet survival needs and build shared understanding about why people do not have what they need. The most famous example in the United States is the Black Panther Party's survival programs, which ran throughout the 1960s and 1970s, including a free breakfast program, free ambulance program, free medical clinics, a service offering rides to elderly people doing errands, and a school aimed at providing a rigorous liberation curriculum to children. The Black Panther programs welcome people into the liberation struggle by creating spaces where they could meet basic needs and build a shared analysis about the conditions they were facing. 2, mutual aid projects mobilize people, expand solidarity, and build movements. Under capitalism, social problems resulting from exploitation and maldistribution of resources are understood as individual moral failings, not systemic problems. Getting support at a place that sees the systems, not the people suffering in them, as the problem, can help people move from shame to anger and defiance. Mutual aid exposes the failures of the current system and shows an alternative. 3, mutual aid projects are participatory, solving problems through collective action rather than waiting for saviors. By participating in groups in new ways and practicing new ways of being together, we are both building the world we want and becoming the kind of people who could live in such a world together.
Thank you, Gregory. What do you want to be when you grow up? We ask this question of children often. I imagine most of the adults here can remember being asked this and what they would have answered. I wanted to be a singer or a cartoonist. Then I wanted to be a teacher and a mother. Never would I have answered that question when asked as a child that I wanted to be a minister or an activist. Aside from the absurdity of expecting a 6-year-old to project 20 to 30 years in the future and know what they want to do for a living, the question implies that what we do to earn money is the whole of who we are or where our value lies. What do you want to be? We don't often ask children, what makes you happy? What brings you joy? We don't draw the dotted line for them, connecting what they will do for a job to having enough money for food and shelter. Perhaps that's too harsh a truth to make explicit. And why would we need to share such truth? Why would having what we need be dependent on what job we do and how well we do it? The reality of earning a living belies the first principle of our faith, that worth and dignity is inherent in our being human. We are born with this worth and dignity, regardless of what we do. We don't earn our living with our labor. Capitalism operates from the opposite perspective, that worth and dignity are earned by what you produce. Human value is correlated to the amount of money you can make and pour into the self-perpetuating system of production and consumption, with the wealthy few profiting from the labor of the many. The perpetuated lie of the American dream is that capitalism is the only viable socioeconomic and political system. Labor Day, which will be celebrated tomorrow in this nation, came to be as a federal holiday to appease the revolutionary resistance of the labor movement of the 1880s. And Chicago was one of the epicenters of that movement. In 1886, Haymarket Square erupted in violence after police disrupted a rally for workers' rights, pushing for an 8-hour workday. Socialists, communists, and anarchists challenging the false narrative of the robber barons of industry were labeled as radicals because they saw capitalism as inherently exploitative. Several labor leaders were scapegoated, imprisoned, and executed after the riot at Haymarket Square. 8 years later, the Pullman strike in Chicago shut down commerce in 27 states after George Pullman laid off his workers, cut wages, and refused to cut costs for those living in his labor camp of entrapment. The strike was squashed when Democratic President Grover Cleveland sent in federal troops who fired on the demonstrators, killing 30 people. Capitalism relies on the underlying false assumption that only a few can capably control the means of production. As the story goes, if you work hard enough, you might get to be one of the lucky few and rise out of poverty and into prosperity. Waking from the lie of the American dream is painful, but it is harder and harder to ignore the truth of escalating inequality and the impossibility of climbing that imaginary ladder. The system is rigged, and it is not designed to meet the vast majority of basic needs. It is designed to oppress more and more of us. I'm going to show you a portion of a video that illustrates the difference between what most people feel would be an equitable distribution of wealth and what those same people think is the actual distribution of wealth. But what is even more startling is the difference between what people think is the distribution of wealth and what it actually is. Keep in mind that this is from 2012, and things have not gotten more equitable.
Instead, let's reduce the 311 million Americans to just a representative 100 people. Make it simple. Here they are: teachers, coaches, firefighters, construction workers, engineers, doctors, lawyers, some investment bankers, a CEO, maybe a celebrity or two. Now let's line them up according to their wealth. Poorest people on the left, wealthiest on the right, just a steady row of folks based on their net worth. We'll color code them like we did before based on which 20% quintile they fall into. Now let's reduce the total wealth of the United States, which was roughly $54 trillion in 2009, to this symbolic pile of cash. And let's distribute it among our 100 Americans. Well, here's socialism, all the wealth of the country distributed equally. We all know that won't work. We need to encourage people to work and work hard to achieve that good old American dream and keep our country moving forward. So, here's that ideal we asked everyone about. Something like this curve. This isn't too bad. We've got some incentive, as the wealthiest folks are now about 10 to 20 times better off than the poorest Americans. But hey, even the poor folks aren't actually poor, since the poverty line has stayed almost entirely off the chart. We have a super healthy middle class with a smooth transition into wealth. And yes, Republicans and Democrats alike chose this curve. 9 out of 10 people, 92%, said this was a nice, ideal distribution of America's wealth. But let's move on. This is what people think America's wealth distribution actually looks like. Not as equitable, clearly, but for me, even this still looks pretty great. Yes, the poorest 20 to 30% are starting to suffer quite a lot compared to the ideal, and the middle class is certainly struggling more than they were, while the rich and wealthy are making roughly 100 times that of the poorest Americans, and about 10 times that of the still healthy middle class. Sadly, this isn't even close to the reality. Here is the actual distribution of wealth in America. The poorest Americans don't even register. They're down to pocket change. And the middle class is barely distinguishable from the poor. In fact, even the rich between the top 10 and 20 percentile are worse off. Only the top 10% are better off. And how much better off? So much better off that the top 2 to 5% are actually off the chart at this scale. And the top 1%, this guy, well, his stack of money stretches 10 times higher than we can show. Here's his stack of cash, restacked, all by itself. This is the top 1% we've been hearing so much about. So much green in his pockets that I have to give him a whole new column of his own, because he won't fit on my chart. 1% of America has 40% of all the nation's wealth. The bottom 80%, 8 out of every 10 people, or 80 out of these 100, only has 7% between them. And this has only gotten worse in the last 20 to 30 years. While the richest 1% take home almost a quarter of the national income today, in 1976, they took home only 9%, meaning their share of income has nearly tripled in the last 30 years. The top 1% own half the country's stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. The bottom 50% of Americans own only 0.5% of these investments, which means they aren't investing. They're just scraping by. I'm sure many of these wealthy people have worked very hard for their money, but do you really believe that the CEO is working 380 times harder than his average employee? Not his lowest paid employee, not the janitor, but the average earner in his company. The average worker needs to work more than a month to earn what the CEO makes in 1 hour. We certainly don't have to go all the way to socialism to find something that is fair for hardworking Americans. We don't even have to achieve what most of us consider might be ideal. All we need to do is wake up and realize that the reality in this country is not at all what we think it is.
The Christian mindset, and specifically the Protestant work ethic that is very much a part of our UU history, is fraught. In the book of Genesis, after Adam takes a bite of the apple from the tree of knowledge, God curses the earth and humanity with these words, Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Work is punishment and the cost of living. The elite class, be it monarchs, landed gentry, enslavers, or the wealthy and powerful owners of business, have always made the most of this mindset, that work is meant to be a curse, which only a few smart, lucky, and privileged earn the right to escape. The story of the Protestant work ethic is this: work hard and you will escape the curse of hard labor. Work hard and earn your right to be a valued member of society. Work hard enough and rise above the class you are born into the class with power and privilege. What if another story was possible? What if the story went something like this? Everyone deserves a home, enough food, adequate health care, peace and well-being, access to education, and the freedom to choose how they want to contribute to the collective well-being of all. What if no matter how hard you worked or what you did for work, no matter what your ability, background, race, gender, or family of origin, you were understood to be a valuable member of society with gifts to share and equal access to basic needs? These ideas are cast as radical, to be silenced and vilified as socialist, communist, anarchist propaganda. To be honest, when I was younger and heard the word anarchist, I thought it meant violence and chaos. I thought it meant a callous disregard for human life. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anarchy is the notion that government is not designed to help people meet their basic needs and is therefore not necessary. The people have the power to govern themselves and should have collective control over the means of production. Now, I'm not here to convince you that we should overthrow the current capitalist government and become anarchists. I'm not. What I am saying is we need to examine the narratives that we take as gospel and determine what aligns with our values. If we say that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, then we should affirm and promote the right for each person to have a home, enough food to eat, medical care, and access to education, regardless of their work or wage. Our fifth principle says people should have a voice in the decisions that affect their lives. It is possible to support these values without overthrowing the government or becoming an outspoken anarchist. There are countless examples of collective resistance and mutual empowerment among the working class, as our reading by Dean Spade illustrates. I know many of you are involved in mutual aid and community organizing. You are writing letters to those locked up. You are helping refugees find support. You are engaged in expanding access to affordable housing. You are promoting reparations and restorative justice. It is challenging to move from a mindset of charity or doing for others toward actions of solidarity, organizing for change with people. But it is more than possible. There have been examples in the past, like the Black Panthers, and there are examples now, like Assata's daughters. What does it mean for Unitarian Universalists living in a capitalist society to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person and the interconnected web of all existence? How do we resist the siren song of ever-expanding GDP and forever increasing productivity as the primary goal? How do we incorporate happiness and well-being into our economic calculations? How do we adequately factor in the costs to the planet and all her species of unmitigated industry and consumption? An article in Time magazine from this past February, shared with me by Andy Fisher, describes the theory of donut economics, put forth by British economist Kate Raworth. Sadly, this is not the theory that if we ate more donuts, everything would be better. The theory is this: that the measure of a society's success should be based not on continuously growing gross domestic product, but upon the ability to fit all of human life into the sweet spot between the social foundation where everyone has what they need to live a good life and the environmental ceiling where we aren't putting more pressure on the planet than is sustainable. The inner ring of the donut is what any economy should not fail to provide for its citizens. Water, food, energy, health, education, income and work, peace and justice, political voice, social equity, gender equality, housing, and networks. The outer ring is held by the ecological limits that humanity should not collectively overshoot. It's easy to dismiss ideas like this as pie in the sky or donut in the sky. But it is imperative, especially in these apocalyptic times, to remember and remain open to innovative thinking, imaginative possibility, and the value of collective efforts. Donut cities are emerging in places like Amsterdam, Copenhagen, New Zealand, Portland, and British Columbia. These are places where collective well-being for all and mutual aid are the goals, not ever-increasing production for profit only. Many of us struggle to know what we can do as individuals to slow or reverse climate change or to interrupt escalating inequality. The answer is alone, almost nothing. It's important to live our values by composting, recycling, driving electric cars, or biking whenever we can, to find the ways that we can promote justice and treat others with equity and kindness. It matters what we do as individuals. But our true power lies in our ability to work together with mutuality, to organize, to collectively change the systems that govern our lives. Together, we can care for one another, ensuring everyone has what they need, not based on an external determination of our value or whether we deserve fundamental rights. Mutual aid as a movement and a mindset is a way toward collective liberation. We are more than what we do. We are more than what we sell or what we earn. The goal of the labor movement strikes that resulted in the rally at Haymarket Square was to shorten the workday to 8 hours, but this was only a stopgap. The ultimate goal was a 4-hour workday and a 4-hour work week. Renewed calls to shorten the work week to 4 days have grown, including legislation introduced last month by Democratic Representative Mark Takano of California. Experiments with this in Iceland, Japan, Spain, and New Zealand show no reduction in productivity and a dramatic increase in workers' well-being. True compassion, said Martin Luther King Jr., is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. The vision of those who rallied at Haymarket Square and the possibility of mutual aid and collective liberation is alive and worth fighting for. The pandemic and the frequency of climate-related disasters remind us that we need local, organized communities of care to make it through. On this Labor Day, may we renew our commitment to nurture our shared faith in what is possible and work together in love and justice to make it real. Amen.
As we extinguish the chalice, please join in saying these words. Though the flame is extinguished, we carry with us the warmth of community, the light of truth, and the fire of commitment until we are together again. The closing hymn is number 128, For All That Is Our Life.
For all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad. For needs which others serve, for services we give, for work and its rewards, for hours of rest and love, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for sorrow we must bear, for failures, pain, and loss, for each new thing we learn, for fearful hours that pass, we come with praise and thanks. For all that is our life, for all that is our life, we sing our thanks and praise. For all life is a gift which we are called to use to build the common good and make our own days glad.
Our benediction is by Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long and we can bend it toward justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Go in peace and justice until we see each other again.